Greetings and salutations to one and all. Welcome to the night shift. It's a Tuesday night, healthy love night right here on the night shift with DJ Kevin Stew. I want to say big ups to each and everyone locked in right now. Those across the pond, One Harmony Radio. Top of the morning to you guys over there. King Genius, Queen Genius, big ups to you. I want to say big ups to all those locked in on WGLRO, home of the Donny Walker Morning Show on the People's Station, taking you from the sheets to the streets. Hailing from Detroit to Denmark and all points in between. Big ups to you guys over there, WGLRO. Big ups to PEMGTV.com. Glad to have you. Thank you very much for the Policy Media Group for sponsor for the streaming services and the hosting services. And of course, big ups to each and everyone locked in right here at the home of the night shift with DJ Kevin Stew, kevinstew.com. So glad to have each and every one of you. I couldn't do it without you, and you have my word. I wouldn't even try.
Mad people time. Mad people time. Mad people time.
I want to say big ups to all my mad people out there.
Hear this. Is this a vet or is this a mad host? They want to know. Why these humans behave like animals, and they want to know what have we so. They say we have a mental disorder, too much abnormal behavior. Just leave we alone with we syndrome. We felt like no harder. We have a crazy persona. It's party before dishonor, and mashing up is record. I say we had gone when we chipping up, behaving like we going up, partying like showing up. I say we had gone when we chipping up, behaving like we going up, partying like we showing up. We go hard, we have fun, so we can't done, so we can't done. It's endless curse and endless fun, so we can't done, so we can't done.
Yeah, we go hard like that.
So we can't done, so we can't done. It's
Endless fun.
endless fun, so we can't done.
Or we just go hard, and
Or is it just simple?
it's endless determination.
They want to know, what chemical could cause this reaction, Lord. They want to know, what have we so. Tell them we have a drinking disorder, too much abnormal behavior. Just leave we alone when we syndrome. We felt like the harder. We have a crazy persona. It's party before dishonor, and mashing up is we call. I said we had gone when
I want to say big ups to Policy Media Group, and thank you for sponsoring this segment of the show. When being in the moment is priceless, give them a call. Innovative streaming and recording solutions for you. When being in that moment is priceless. Yes, priceless. 754-999-6020. Or visit them at paulcmg.com. They'll give you the cost,
We go party like we never before,
but it's still priceless.
like we never before. His drinks,
I want to say thanks to Althea and her healing heavenly hands.
so we mad turning cold. Let me go.
Althea is a licensed massage therapist that comes to you
Behaving like we going up, parading like we showing up. I said we had gone when we chipping up, behaving like we going up, parading like we showing up. We go hard, we had fun, so we can't done, so we can't done. It's endless curse and endless fun, so we can't done, so
Let's give her a call, 954-655-9000.
we can't done, so we can't done. It's endless curse and endless fun, so we can't done. We go party like we never before. We go felt like we never before.
If you're in Broad County, North Miami-Dade, South Palm Beach counties, let's give her a call. She comes to you, oils and all. And of course, with her healing heavenly hands. And the only request that she has, outside of paying her, is that you get off her table when she's done. Believe me, many have fallen asleep, like me, at the hands of Althea LSU, licensed massage therapist extraordinaire. Big ups also to Reggae Global Entertainment. Thank you for sponsoring the third segment of the show. Reggae Global Entertainment will be your booking agent. Take care of your tour management, your trademarks, your publishing, your business registration, your legal services, your music production, your marketing and promotions, and so much more. And of course, GMAT Music Solutions, providing light, sound, stage and production services, musical equipment, DJs, bands, musicians, singers, PA systems, audio engineers. Let's give them a call, 754-307-GMAC. Or visit them at gmatsmusicsolutions.com. You can also do online shopping there. Oh, I didn't even give you the number for Reggae Global if you need to call them. 954-998-8034. And you can visit them online at reggaeglobalentertainment.com. You don't go hard, you have to go home. If you're just tuning in, it's Healthy Love tonight. And tonight we have it's not very often that I have a guest these days on a Tuesday night, on a Healthy Love night. It's usually reserved for Dr. Jenny Stone. But tonight, we get graced. You know, Dr. J is a chiropractor. Tonight we have a different doctor that specializes in a different part. And let me tell you, when I tell you about somebody that goes hard, with him it's not an option. Because you have to go home better than you came to see him. Ladies and gentlemen, I know he is here. Yeah, you're there, right, Doc?
I'm here.
See, I told you that he was there.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the man of the moment, the one and only Dr. Bernard Ashby.
Appreciate you. Big up, big up.
Greetings and salutations, man. How you doing? How you doing, bro?
I'm great. I'm actually up in New York for a little while, but all is well.
Wait, traveling in these times?
Well, you know, by necessity. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your perspective, Miami, New York. Hold on, those are my baby cousins. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
New York is probably a safer place than Florida right now.
Really?
Yeah.
That is interesting.
Yes. I mean, as bad as New York was, they actually have the virus under control and have protocols and contact tracing and testing, and they just have it together. Unlike Florida, where it's just, you know, a free for all basically.
So I wonder what they did different in New York from us here in South Florida.
Oh, well, I have a feeling you know the answer to that question, but I'll go ahead and answer anyways.
You know, before you answer that, let's go through and let the people get familiar with who Dr. Ashby is.
Yes, I appreciate it. My name again is Bernard Ashby. I was born and raised here in South Florida. My father's from Aruba. My mother's from St. Kitts. And they met in the Virgin Islands. So St. Thomas is like my second home. Big up Rock City. Without getting too much detail, I'm a vascular cardiologist. And I practice in Miami and Port St. Lucie currently. So I have two offices. I used to work at Mount Sinai, and I used to teach at Columbia University before leaving the academic realm and going into my private practice, which I'm doing currently. And I actually still teach at FIU and UM currently.
Now, boy, I don't know how you managed to squeeze all that into your short time here on Earth to get a doctorate and be a teacher at various institutions and be a a vascular cardiologist. That's what you said, right?
Yes, yes, correct.
Versus just saying a cardiovascular doctor.
It's a little bit different. It's a little bit different. In addition to doing general cardiology, I tell people I'm a glorified plumber. So I specialize in blood vessel diseases as well. So
Right.
anything related to the veins, the arteries, or the lymphatic system is under my, under my purview as well. So that's that.
Nice, nice. Two offices,
Yes,
Miami and Port St. That's a stretch.
that is a stretch. That is a stretch. Uh-huh. But honestly, it came about because of just circumstance. And I'm from South Florida. I live in Miami. I work in Miami, and that's why I decided to start my office. But the opportunity in Port St. Lucie presented itself, and I couldn't pass it up because, unfortunately, there's a lot of patients in that area that are not getting the appropriate care.
Mm.
And so I ended up working at a hospital in that area. And instead of just doing hospital work exclusively, I decided to open up an office next to the hospital. So, you know,
Nice.
uh, the drive isn't great, but I'll figure it out eventually. But that's I'm a child of immigrants, island people, so I feel like what I'm doing right now is nothing compared to what they did to bring me to where I'm at right now. So
Yeah.
I think I'll be fine.
All right. So that's a brief overview. And before we
Yeah.
get done tonight, for those who want to reach out and connect with you, we'll give that information
Yes,
also.
yes, definitely.
Whether it
Comprehensive
be
vascular care.
to connect with you as an individual, to uh, as- you know, to bounce ideas or discussions, or to connect with you professionally because
Definitely.
they need care.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. I'm a man of the community, so I'm not one of those people that say if you talk to me, I put you on the clock. I feel
Right. Right.
yeah, I feel if you have a question for me, I'll answer anything. So you can reach me out on social media, or if you need to get seen, you could obviously book an appointment at Comprehensive Vascular Care, and then we'll talk about that later, I guess. But
Right. Yeah.
yeah, consider me family, folks.
Well, it only takes like 5 minutes on this show. After that, and that 5 minutes is when I introduce you. After that, is your
Yeah.
show.
All right.
I'm just facilitating it.
Yeah.
So just make sure you're comfortable. That's all I'm saying to you right now. Just get comfortable.
All right. All right. Yeah. Well, I'm here on the couch. I'm comfortable. Have my drink in my hand. So let's talk.
There you go. Now we met a few weeks ago, on the in the Moment to Remember studio on the set of Bar Talk. You were
Yes.
one of three guests on Bar Talk, Luke Ballantyne's Bar Talk, which is broadcast on Sundays from 5 to 6 p.m. on Jamaicans.com on Facebook. Now,
Yes.
and you brought some views on that. We were talking about the whole pandemic thing, and we touched a little bit on the George Floyd issue. And you brought some amazing views, some of which I guess people wouldn't really expect from a doctor of medicine.
Yeah. Yeah. Now that's unfortunate.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
well, I guess people just only think that medical doctors, only know medicine, and they spend all
Yeah.
their time in hospitals and clinics. So that's all that they can talk about.
Yeah. Well, that's true. That's true a lot of the time. Unfortunately,
Mm.
a lot of physicians aren't dynamic. But I think if you're gonna practice medicine, you need to be very plugged in with your community as well.
Right.
Still
Because
practicing isolation.
yeah, there's a social aspect to our health,
Yes,
which is often
incredibly
ignored.
important. Exactly, exactly.
Now,
And yeah, yeah, I'm listening.
that kind of brings us back to where I had taken you from initially when you were going to respond to what is being done differently in New York versus South Florida.
Yes. Well, to get back to the original question, it's pretty simple. New York had a plan. They had a plan,
Mm,
and they appreciated the public health implications of the virus, and therefore they planned accordingly.
right.
Whereas in Florida, it was the economy first um,
Hmm.
perspective or approach, I should say.
Yeah.
And even with the reopening panel that the census put together, there wasn't one medical professional on that panel. There was a bunch of business executives, which is ridiculous. And so you're seeing the consequences of that right now play out, unfortunately.
Now, you and I had a small discussion about some of the things that were being done since the news broke about this COVID thing. And anybody listening in that would want to chime in and if you want to call in, go ahead and call 773-789-STEW. You can call, you can text at 773-789-7839. Of course, the stew pot is there. Those of you wondering what the stew pot is, you go to kevinstew.com. Boom, it's right there. It's others call it a chat room. We're very fancy over here. It's the stew pot. It's where we keep things bubbling and interactive. So I invite you all to come on in, give your perspectives, place your comments, call. Uh, Dr. Ashby is here, and you have some questions as it relates to his point of view, or you want to share yours, bring it. It's healthy love, and we try to raise awareness of our health in a really loving way. And sometimes that love, it might be some tough love, but it's love nonetheless. Now, so here we are,
Amen.
and you're saying that they had a plan in New York. No, not so much of a plan here. Business executives make up the panel, which is kind of crazy. Now, with how we have been approaching this COVID thing, what do you think we have not really been doing right?
Well, I don't, where do I start? Yeah, where do I
Right, it's
start?
like that.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, the fact that we view the problem in political through a political lens is a huge issue.
Yeah.
Like there should be nothing political about a virus, but somehow it's become politicized, and
Mm-hmm.
therefore, depending on what silo you sit in, you're gonna get your information filtered through that prism, and
Right.
you're gonna view it in that way.
Right.
And both extremes are wrong. I mean, if you watch CNN, you're gonna get a very biased perspective. If you watch Fox News, you're gonna get another biased perspective, so on and so forth. And it's really hard to find where the truth lies because everybody has an agenda.
Right.
Oh, so I think one of the issues is that it's been politicized.
Mm.
I think that's really the main issue if you think about it, as far as I'm concerned. A lot of people are again viewing it through their political lenses and not really understanding the issue.
Are there
Oh,
some things that you heard being told to the public that you just stop dead in your tracks and go like, Who is putting out this information?"
yeah. Oh, don't get me started. Um, the first flagrant violation was with regards to the CDC and the Surgeon General, who initially told people not to wear masks, which
Mm.
was beyond ridiculous. And it was. I mean, I can't even come up with the word for it. It was just ridiculous because um, all the evidence pointed to the fact that mass use mitigated or decreased the risk of infection. Infection. But they went out of their way to tell people not to wear masks, that it wasn't helpful, not because of the evidence, but because they were worried of people overutilizing the PPE, personal protective equipment, and
Yeah.
they're not being enough for the first responders or the first line workers, which obviously we all care about, but for them to lie to the public, or at least give them information that was blatantly wrong, is beyond negligent, for lack of a better word. And then they reverse course, um, and then told people to wear masks, but wear the cloth ones. After that, they lost a lot of credibility from the public, because they
Right.
came out emphatically and told people not to wear masks, and it even ridiculed people for wearing masks. And then they did a complete 180 and said wear the mask. I mean, so you know, a lot of folks have an inherent distrust of our government,
Yeah.
and it's not irrational. I mean, if you read a history book, uh, there's plenty of reason not to trust our government. And so, yeah, and so when they do something like that, it just delegitimizes their recommendations.
Right.
And I think that was really one of the missteps that occurred early on. And don't get me started on the testing debacle. The fact that it was almost yeah, the fact that
Go
it took us
ahead, Al.
almost 2 months for us to test 20,000 people for the virus, which was ridiculous. I mean, the first case we had was in early January. We weren't able to test until in March. You know, it was just a fundamental failure of our system. And rather than admit to it and course correct, it was politicized.
Right.
And it's just been one failure after another, and 100,000 plus death later. We're still trying to retell the story. At least politicians are trying to tell the story, and at the end of the day, I really do feel that our government has failed us, and the leadership has failed us, and it's really shown where our priorities lie. Our government has shown us, and our country has shown us the that economics are really what guide decisions, not necessarily evidence-based medicine or public health concerns. It's really economics. And what's sad about it is that if they would have taken a public health approach, the economy would have fared a lot better, and we probably could have avoided lockdown if we simply would have been proactive in our approach. But
Right.
we ended up doing a lockdown, and what's so crazy about it is that uh, the benefits that we've seen during lockdown are being completely erased. And so I felt like it feels as though we went in lockdown for no reason, which is true in a lot of places, including Florida.
What about the theory of the lockdown making us more susceptible to viruses and disease?
Yeah, that's just fake news, and uh, that's just a theory, um, with no evidence behind it and no precedent behind it. I have no idea where that came from, and what is that based in, other than somebody's thought that's been accepted by a lot of people. And so, being locked down does not make you more susceptible to the virus. We all know that if you're not as active as you should be, if you're not eating as well, if you're smoking, those are all negative. Those are all things that negatively impact your health. So that goes without saying. But to attribute it to the lockdown, again, that's viewing this to a political spectrum.
Okay. So, in the event, taking it from the perspective then that you're not being as active as you should be. You're not getting the nutrients that going out in the sunlight and getting vitamin D and being active, getting the blood flowing and such. Whereas that is concerned, you put yourself in a position to encourage
Well,
this ease.
I mean, just because we went on lockdown doesn't mean the activity level has to decrease.
Right.
I mean,
But most
America is
people,
sedentary to begin with,
yeah, right.
and working from home obviously wasn't helpful. But no one said stay home and be inside. It simply
And
said,
just become a vegetable. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
It said, social distance, like separate, keep your space, but go outside, exercise, get some sun. So these are all things that were recommended, but folks focused on the lockdown part of it.
Yeah.
And the whole concept behind that was just to decrease the rate of spread by minimizing the contact between individuals.
Right.
And the fact that we had to do that was a problem because that meant we were at the point where our hospitals were going to get overwhelmed, and that's the whole only reason we went into lockdown was because they were worried about too many people getting infected at the same time and overwhelming our healthcare system. And lockdown was a reactionary measure. We would have never had to have done lockdown if we would have been proactive in identifying the virus, entering the country, and tracking it, and having a very granular or um, individual understanding of who has the infection and who doesn't, so that when there is an outbreak, it could be, you know, uh, contained.
Mm.
And the
Yeah.
fact that we're in June now, and we still don't have any containment strategy is ridiculous.
Well, I guess that's part of the politics.
Hmm. Very much so.
Because, it is an election year,
Hmm.
and elections are just, what, 5 months away?
Yep. Hmm.
So, things that make you go,
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, there is a more pressing issue. There's something that is more, that is weighing a little bit more heavily on you.
Yeah.
And you and I had started sharing about this before, and I'm glad you took the opportunity to come on this platform and express this concern and share this view as it relates to police brutality and the healthcare disparities.
Yes.
And there are a lot of people that would say, well, the two are not connected.
Yeah.
Why would you want to talk about the two? And why is this doctor coming to talk about some police brutality and well, I can understand the healthcare side, but police brutality, what does this doctor know about police brutality apart from
Yeah.
seeing the patients?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, yeah. First of all, I'm a black man in America, right?
Yeah, that's the first thing. In case those
First
who are
of all,
watching didn't notice, and for those
yeah.
who are not watching and just listening, yeah.
Yes. So, so let's start from there. And my life, unfortunately, is very typical of the black experience in America. I am. Uh, where do I start? I mean, my situation. Obviously, I'm a cardiologist, and I'm very well educated,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm an outlier compared to people that I grew up with. And obviously, I had great parents and a lot of individuals who helped me get here. But I have one brother who was beat up by the police, and he was in college at the time, and it was over something so stupid. It was a car being towed, and they beat him up because he didn't listen to their initial orders. And after he got beat up, my brother was so angry that it happened to him that he took it to court because the police officer said that he beat them up. And he was like, "How did I beat them up? Like, they don't have a scratch on them, and I'm in the hospital." And
Right.
so when he took it to court, he thought that he was going to win in Tallahassee, Florida, and he lost. The other cases got dropped, but the one case stuck, and he had a year in jail. He got expelled from school, and he became a permanent second class citizen. Then I have another brother who's currently serving time and doing a 10-year sentence for a violation of probation for a prior drug offense. So again, my experience is typical of the black males in
Right.
America,
In
and
America,
and my
yeah.
own experience, and in my own experience, I've had guns pulled out on me by the cops. I mean, I had a cop pull me over. Well, actually, it was more than one cop pulled me over, and they approached my car with the guns out. And their reason for pulling out the guns was that I didn't stop initially. I mean, I didn't see them. Literally didn't see them, and that was a reason enough for them to pull guns out on me, a young teenage boy. But again, every single man that I know, professional black man that I know, professional or not, has an experience where they felt threatened by the police, where they've had guns pulled on them, and 9 times out of 10 it's without good reason. And so again, that's the experience. So to
Mm.
George Floyd, um, the video went viral,
Right.
and millions of people saw that man die.
Mm-hmm.
But what's interesting is that people did not pay attention to what happened after EMS arrived. And there's been almost no discussion about the failure of the emergency medical services or the paramedics that responded, and their culpability in the death of George Floyd. And so let me explain. David Chappelle did a whole stand up called 8 minutes 46 seconds. I think, I don't know, between 7 minutes and 8 minutes. I don't know. But the point is that the knee was on this gentleman's neck for over 7 minutes.
Yeah.
What people didn't realize is that when EMS arrived, he was unconscious maybe about 2 minutes, and he didn't exhibit any breathing for about a minute. So
Right.
long story short is that he was very much salvageable at that point. Um, if you the sooner you restore circulation, the more likely that person is going to live.
Right.
And circulation is a fancy way of saying, chest compressions and doing what you need to do to oxygenate the body. So breathing, which is part of CPR,
Mm-hmm.
and chest compressions.
Right.
If you watch that video, and I want everybody who's listening to this program to go back and watch that video if you could stomach it, because obviously it's a traumatic thing to watch.
Yeah.
But when EMS arrives on the scene, they casually come out and they casually check his pulse. When they didn't feel the pulse, you start you should start CPR right then and there,
Mm-hmm.
because every second counts.
Right.
EMS did not do any of that.
Mm-hmm.
They checked his pulse, did not feel one, and then went back to the ambulance and pulled out the gurney.
Mm-hmm.
All the while, officer the officer
It's still
kept his
on him.
knee on his neck.
In fact, the three officers were still holding him down.
3 officers are still on him, and this guy is unresponsive, pulseless. At a minimum, you take them off. You remove these officers from on top of them. That's your duty. They did none of that, and they let them stay on this guy's neck, back, legs for another minute. And then when they finally do decide to have the officer remove his knee from his neck and the other ones get up, it was a whole minute later after they didn't feel a pulse. A minute later. That's an
Mm-hmm.
eternity
Yeah.
in medicine. And then instead of removing the handcuffs and treating him like a human being, they kept the handcuffs on this man. And when they picked him up, they did not protect his head at all,
His neck. Yeah.
his neck at all. And that's medicine 101. You protect the C spine. What do we mean? You protect the cervical spine,
Mm-hmm.
because you're always concerned about a possible fracture in the back of the neck, and if that fracture is exacerbated or worsened, you could potentially sever the spine and cause permanent damage.
Right.
So at a minimum, you protect the neck. They didn't do that. They then put the man in the gurney and put him in the ambulance, and the ambulance doesn't leave right away. There was quite a bit of back and forth before the ambulance actually left. Then the head of the EMS division, the chief, later said in a statement that they did CPR on him for an hour, between when they arrived and when he ended up in the ER, where they call the code. And What's
Which hour?
crazy to me is that exactly, exactly. So basically, the whole time the cameras were on, they did not attempt to do any basic life support, and so they waited until however many minutes later to start it when they knew it was futile.
Hmm.
It was a complete dereliction of duty. Hold
Well,
on, hold on. I'm listening. I'm listening.
so for me, it started with the cops because, as far as I know, with talking to other cops, with listening to cops talk about their training that they have received, with the cops that I know, I had CPR first aid training. So when it comes to positioning of someone who's unconscious, when it comes to chest compressions, when it comes to breathing, when it comes to all that, I got the training.
Yep, and exactly.
As
They're
a
first
first
responders.
responder, you
Yes,
have the training. Working for the Salvation Army, I essentially became a first responder, plus working with children.
exactly.
You know,
Hmm.
now the very same people who had him detained have a responsibility to him to preserve his life.
Yes,
They know that in the position that they had him, there was a risk of positional asphyxiation.
yes.
They know that a knee on the neck is not the proper restraining position. A knee on the shoulders
Hmm.
or across the shoulders, that's different.
Yeah.
The neck, no.
Yep.
A little bit of weight on the back of an individual laying on their stomach can
Hmm.
cause difficulty with breathing, hence
Hmm. And
positional
circulation.
asphyxiation
Yep.
and circulation.
Exactly. And between the three of them, it was at least 500 pounds of pressure on that man.
Right. And this is what a lot of people are not getting. And everybody is focusing on Shavin and his knee on his neck. Well, everybody's focusing on that because that was a video that what everybody been paying attention to.
Hmm.
But you look at the video from across the street,
Three of them.
there are three individuals on this man. You're preventing circulation, you're
Hmm.
preventing breathing. I don't see where, if anything, if you're going to pinpoint anyone,
Hmm.
in my opinion, it's the cop in the middle
Yeah.
because he is on his back, causing the most difficulty with his breathing.
Hmm.
But everybody's
Yeah.
focusing on the man in the front because that is where the video was. So it is what you
Exactly.
can see that you point the finger on. But
Exactly.
here's my problem with this now. The case of the other three officers hinge on what Shavin, the one whose knee was on his neck, is accused of. He gets
Hmm.
off of that and everybody gets off.
Well, yeah, agreed. But there's a lot more nuance in this case, and if you actually look at the report that was written,
Mm-hmm.
you find some truly disturbing details that come out. Um, the officer who was at the bottom um, noticed that he was unresponsive.
Yeah.
He asked Chauvin, "Should we turn him on his side?" Chauvin said no.
Mm-hmm.
The officer then notices that he, George Floyd is no longer breathing, so he checks a pulse, a radial pulse, um, in his hand
Mm-hmm.
because his hand is by his side,
Right.
where his handcuffs are.
Yeah.
Does not feel a pulse at that time. So once he's pulseless, like you said, right? They're first responders.
Mm-hmm.
They're obligated to render first aid to that gentleman.
Yes.
You know, you unhandcuff him, you begin CPR. The officer said that he told Chauvin he did not feel a pulse, and Chauvin said no.
Mm.
Stay where you're at. The officer said that about Chauvin.
Yeah.
So they're already throwing each other under the bus.
Mm-hmm.
But again, to your point, the failure happened with the officers, obviously, right? They're the ones that killed them.
Yeah.
But compounded on that, they neglected to offer basic life support, basic
Yes.
first aid. And that continued up until the point EMS arrived, did not fill a pulse, and did not offer him any basic life support.
Right.
And it was a complete failure. And that's why I say his death was a healthcare disparity, right? And we in medicine, we have very good PR,
Mm-hmm.
and we're very good, we're very politically correct. And in policing, we call it police brutality, we call it racism, and we call it what it is. But in medicine, we call it a healthcare disparity. It sounds very magical and abstract, but during the COVID-19 pandemic, there was story after story after story of folks who tried to get tested, could not get tested, went to the ER and got sent home, got admitted to the hospital and did not get the appropriate care. No one ever talks about that. We focus on the pre-existing conditions, the obesity, the hypertension, the diabetes, which are all valid,
Yes.
but they're not exclusive to the black community. At
Mm-hmm.
least not to the extent where it would explain the disparities that exist with the COVID-19 pandemic. But this is something you see through medicine all the time, and anybody who's been in medicine understood that this was going to happen because with heart disease, with cancer, with the maternal mortality rate, it's all at least twice to multiple times uh, higher when it comes to a black person versus a white person, and that can be attributed to the biases in our system. And so when someone of color presents for care, they're just less likely to get care, period. And then once they do get the care, it's going to be inferior. And I see that all the time in the hospitals. And I have to constantly fight with other doctors, with the hospital, to treat my patients appropriately, especially when they don't have insurance. And so
Mm.
when doctors see a patient, especially like me in private practice,
Yeah.
if you see a patient in a hospital and they don't have insurance, you don't get paid, right?
Right.
And obviously it's not right because the hospitals when they see a patient that's uninsured, they get money from the government to compensate them. As a doctor, you don't get anything. So doctors are not incentivized to take care of patients, and unfortunately, um, black folks are more likely to be uninsured or underinsured than white people. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's also baked into the cake. And so I see that a lot where I have to basically twist arms for my other doctors colleagues to actually provide adequate care for my patients. I had a patient the other day, a black gentleman, a Vietnam veteran, fought for our country, and he was a VA patient, but they brought him to the main hospital, and they wanted to cut off this man's leg, and I was like, why do you want to cut off this man's leg? Why don't you just open up the artery, restore blood flow, and let's see what happens.
Mm.
But the reason why they wanted to cut his leg off was because it was more expedient, one, but two, it was reimbursable as opposed to doing the other procedure, which would have saved his leg.
Really?
And yes, and these are the things that you see every day, all day in a hospital that we don't talk about. And I tell people if we had a body cam in a hospital, it would make what's going on now look like a walk in the park because people will lose their minds. And you see it in the actual death rates. Like black people are dying at a much higher rate from preventable conditions, uh, left and right. And we attribute it to very abstract things. We call it healthcare disparities. When in fact, we have a system that systematically uh, doesn't serve the needs of many of our communities. And so, from my standpoint, I'm not a big proponent of these stupid programs that they have, these lectures where they have cultural competency and all that. That's
Mm-hmm.
not going to change anything. You have to you have to have a system, an institution that serves the needs of the community. And that's the problem with the hospital institutions and the healthcare institutions in our country, and that's what's going on with the criminal justice system and the police, is that they're asking, are these institutions serving our community, or are they harming our community? And that's a fundamental question we need to ask, because a lot of these hospitals that are in our communities, they're not incentivized to provide us with quality care. They're incentivized to make money,
Right.
and therefore they don't want to deal with certain patients because they don't make money off of them. And that to me is not that has no place in healthcare at all. So
Now,
that's my soapbox moment.
your soapbox moment is not done yet, because
Okay,
you have a whole lot more time. You
okay,
have almost an hour left.
all right. Let's talk.
It's your show, you
All right, boss.
know. But when you say things like that, when you come out, because I've heard you mention about things about the disparities before.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, I recently started following you on social media. I've looked at some of your posts, and you're not quiet about this stuff by any stretch of the imagination.
Not at all.
When you take the position that you do, don't you run the risk of getting blackballed, sidelined? You already have the wrong skin color,
Hmm.
so to speak.
Hmm.
Now you want to be stirring up the antsness by
Hmm.
saying things like healthcare disparities, and the system is biased against people of color. You
Hmm.
know, those are real harsh accusations. But
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
coming from
Hmm.
someone on the inside who knows, it's not so much of an accusation as much as it is calling light to and calling
Hmm.
out these institutions. So don't you run the
Yes.
risk of getting blackballed?
Definitely. Definitely. And I mean, it- I've already run into issues up front.
Mm,
However, you know, for me, it took me a while to find my voice,
yeah.
and I'll tell you why. I'm not so quick to pat myself on the back, because before I took this position, I was part of the problem,
Mm,
and and a lot of folks say, we want more physicians of color,
right.
and and it makes perfect sense. If you had more diversity, you'd have more cultural competency, and you have people who come from certain communities dealing with the needs of communities.
Right.
However, yeah, however, in the healthcare system, you become heavily indoctrinated, heavily. And so, in order to be able to succeed in becoming a physician, which is already a monumental feat, but doing so as a black person, it's extremely difficult. And if you don't, what's what I'm looking for? If you don't assimilate
Mm,
or fall in line with the dogma, then you become a problem. And again, it's already difficult becoming a doctor in general, but as a minority, it's extremely difficult, and it's so easy to get labeled as a troublemaker or not capable or not competent, and so you're dealing with all of these stigmas that are out there, and biases that are out there, that you're so busy trying to survive that you don't even have the footing to address the issues that are there. And this is across the board. And I was extremely high functioning, trainee. I did incredibly well. I ended up being chief of my cardiology fellowship.
mm,
But even with that, I had to stay under the radar and not address certain things that I saw happening, because I was too busy trying to survive and not ruffle any feathers. Because just the mere fact of me being a black man made me stick out like a sore thumb.
right.
So, you know, there's a microscope on you, and therefore, um, you don't want to ruffle any feathers. But in addition to that, your entire training is a heavily indoctrinated process. And so one of the first times that I realized that I was biased was when I was ordering um, drug tests on my minority patients and not my white patients. So if I had a patient that comes in with chest pain, it was part of my routine to screen certain patients for um, drugs like cocaine, because sometimes you take cocaine, it could cause chest pain.
Okay.
Well, who's more likely to use cocaine? Well, it's more likely to be someone who's uh, has um, college education, someone who's in certain fields like law or in the stock market, and they're more likely to be white, and they're more likely to be male. I mean, if you really want to, screen for cocaine use, I would be more likely to pick it up in that population. But I wasn't checking because I was doing what my professors taught me to do. You know,
Mm.
you understand? And so when people came in, they're like, "Oh yeah, you might be a drug user. You look kind of disheveled and on the streets. You're probably using cocaine." Oh, one, it's implicitly biased, but
Yes.
two, actually, it actually works against um, the people that I'm not testing, because those gentlemen that are coming in, those white males who came in with chest pain, a lot of those patients were using cocaine,
Right.
and I was missing out on those patients because I wasn't even thinking about it, because I didn't associate drug use with them. And so, you know, we all have biases, right? We all have
Mm-hmm.
blind spots. And it's
Yep.
important to be very humble and be open to new information, and always question where your deficits are. And so that experience and many others helped me realize, I have a lot of blind spots. And why do I have these blind spots? Um, and then you begin to realize that you're part of the problem. And we give cops a hard time, but cops are part of a system. They get indoctrinated from the get go. You got to be gang
Yes.
gang to be a cop. Like you're not going to survive if you're not gang gang. And the same goes for medicine. If you don't assimilate, if you don't fall in line, you're not going to make it through training. And so you become just another cog in the wheel of a system that's implicitly and inherently biased. And therefore, it takes basically an act of God for someone like myself to realize that I am part of the problem. And a lot of these doctors who are marching and saying Black Lives Matter, they're part of the problem. But they're focused on the police and not looking at themselves in the mirror. And
Right.
so I definitely think we have our own moment of reckoning that's going to happen at some point. And I think people just need to be more aware. And I think once folks start looking at these quote unquote disparities and realize that people are dying because they're not getting adequate care, um, the tune will change very quickly. And so, one of my dreams is to um, build an institution, healthcare system that has a specific agenda for our communities, that's specifically targeted towards our communities, and has an agenda to improve the health, not just to make money, but to improve the health of the community. And then money is a tertiary, quaternary goal, as opposed to being the first and foremost and only goal.
But isn't that difficult to do to maintain such an institution?
Hmm.
And
Yes,
making money is the secondary.
yes, it
how
is. It
how how
is.
do you how do you even get that plan on paper? I understand, it really sounds good. It's one of those things that, fairy tales and unicorns, you know,
Yeah, yes, yes,
but that doesn't happen in reality.
yeah.
I'm not saying that it cannot happen. The question is, how do we make that happen? Because would you, all right, let me ask you this before I forget it again. Is that one of the reasons why you went off into private practice?
Hmm.
So, you, recognizing that you were a part of a bigger problem, you decided, you know what? let me stand over here and try to make a difference.
Yes.
Cool. So
Mhm.
that's one reason right there why anybody that needs a vascular cardio, how you put it?
Oh, you just say cardiologist.
No, I like the
A
way you put
cardiologist.
it. That's why I tried to remember it.
Oh,
So I
oh,
try to
oh,
say it as
oh,
often
oh,
as
yeah.
possible.
Vascular cardiologist. Yes.
Oh, okay. So the vascular cardiologist. Anybody that is looking for one of those, this should be the first name that comes to mind. Whether you're black, white, pink, or purple, but especially if you're black.
Yeah.
Because here's what
Definitely.
I have been saying for a while now. We need to rebuild Greenwood, Oklahoma, that was destroyed in 1921 in
Yes.
every city. And for those of
Mhm.
you who don't know about Greenwood, Oklahoma, it's that little place in Tulsa that is referred to as Black Wall Street. And the only way that we can do that is basically the same way other groups have done it, by supporting their own.
Exactly.
Us, we people of color, we are already behind the eight ball. And if you check history, you will see it not last week. I didn't do a show last week, but the week before that, on in Real Talk, I touched on where Caucasians came from,
Mm.
and that history lesson in and of itself was eye opening. Doing that research and finding that information. Now tomorrow I'm gonna be looking at where Negroes came from,
Mhm.
which is another side of it. But it's a part of what we're talking about right now. It's a part of what you have decided to step out and do in creating, in forming your own business. And I guess right now you are experiencing firsthand the difficulties in making money and running a business
Yes.
and servicing the community.
Yeah.
But aren't there grants that are available to people that take care of things like that? Available to businesses?
There's a lot of things out there. Again, I'm not an expert,
Yeah.
but I am finding out that there's certain programs available. I have yet to apply for any of those.
Mm-hmm.
But that's one of the issues with someone like me who decides to open up a practice. You have to recreate the wheel. And I didn't learn how to run a business in medical school. I learned how to be a doctor, a very good one,
Right.
academic position, right? And I teach, and I can tell you, anything about the heart like the back of my hand.
Right.
Yeah, but when it comes to,
Well, that's where a business
hiring,
manager comes in.
exactly. But on top of that, the that's easier said than done because uh, again, I I'm not making any excuses, and my,
Mm-hmm.
my practice is running just fine.
Yeah.
However, it was a tough road to get to where I'm at right now, and I'm still nowhere near where I want to be.
Yeah.
But there's no reason why I should have had to reinvent the wheel when there's other black physicians out there who did the hard lifting and could easily have just told me exactly what they did and shared information with me. And that's a huge issue with the medicine is that because of the indoctrination, because of
Mm.
the trauma and other reasons
Yeah.
that I know I don't know and I may know about, but we're very siloed. And even when I try to, as a young physician, reach out to other doctors, other cardiologists, and say, "Hey, I want to do what you're doing," rather than being greeted with a warm embrace, I was viewed as competition. And
There's the other part of our problem.
exactly, and that's the mentality. We could get
Crabs in a
real deep
barrel.
into that mentality. Yep, we could get
And
real deep with the mentality.
this is
But
something that is not new to us. This is something that is pretty much a part of the black indoctrination, based
mhm.
on some of the research and information that has I've come across. And thank you.
Or open up a history book.
Yeah,
So
but not the history book that they're using in the classrooms. No,
Oh no, real history.
not
Yes.
those.
Yeah, not Disney, the Disney World version
Yeah,
of
because
history. No.
I am grateful to those individuals who have been sending me information. And it was a result of one of my colleagues sending me some information, a DJ here in South Florida, sending me information that really has supported the information that I have to present on for tomorrow's show. And,
Yeah.
one of the things was that as a black man from the time of slavery, they were teaching us to behave in certain ways. So we're conditioned to behave in
Mhm.
certain ways. And when you look at things like in the art of war, divide and conquer is
Yep.
what everybody uses.
Yep. That's
If
101, right? Yep.
if we as a people cannot unite, we will never be in a position to challenge, let alone to win.
Yes.
And therein lies the reason why we need to go back and rebuild a Greenwood, Oklahoma of 1921 in every city, because we need to
Yes.
get back to the point where we are supporting each other.
Yes.
And that's what we're not doing. When you find a group of individuals who can network and understand the value of having that network, and then they build together, then they can do more in their community, because now you have a stronger unit. You have three pieces of twine being wrapped together versus individual single strands that can be easily broken.
Exactly. Yep.
And I bring one thing to the table, you bring another thing to the table, and somebody else brings
Mhm.
something else to the table. And we put all
Exactly.
those things together and we get a massive round table. It's three sides,
Yeah.
but it's a round table nonetheless.
And that's why a lot of folks say that desegregation actually was counterproductive in a lot of black communities. Like for someone like me, for example,
Hmm.
a lot of physicians they couldn't practice at non-black hospitals. They only could treat black patients in black hospitals,
Right.
and they could only live in black neighborhoods. And so when they would go and get their fancy education or whatever, and their good job, they would be in a black neighborhood, and those dollars that they spent stayed in circulation.
Hmm.
And once you desegregated, a lot of folks they got educated, they get their money, and they move in suburbia somewhere in a predominantly white neighborhood, and they're disconnected. And so, yes, there's no unity whatsoever. There's no cooperative economics going on, and unfortunately, it's to our detriment because other groups do exactly that and unapologetically.
Right.
And it's really a mentality that's unfortunately is holding us back. And again, we can get very deep, and you've already gotten deep there, but
Oh no,
it's
no,
something
that's
that
that's
needs to
what it's all
change.
about.
No,
These are the discussions that we need to actually be having, because
yeah,
people are saying it, whispering it around the corner somewhere,
yes,
and thinking that what are you doing whispering it in the corner somewhere?
yeah, agreed. But I agree 100%, and I think we're on the same page. But one of the things that I've done is uh, started pointing the finger at myself, and I
And
always
I love that.
anytime, thank you. But yeah, anytime I see something that I don't like, I first ask, well, like, what am I doing about it? Like, and how am I helping or hurting that cause? And when you look in the mirror, sometimes you don't like what you see, but you have to do it. And for me, I just decided, you know what, I'm gonna just do what I need to do. I'm gonna work hard. I still, I'm not too afraid to or too prideful to ask for help. Anybody wants to help me, please. If anybody listening that knows how to build a successful cardiovascular practice, hey, come hit me up. But until then, I'm gonna make it work.
Mm-hmm.
But in the meantime, I'm going to work on myself and do what I need to do as an individual so that I'm not part of the problem.
Right.
And so it's an ongoing process. And again, when you're faced with your image in the mirror, sometimes you don't like what you see, but you have to you have to do it. You have to point the finger at yourself first, and you have to identify your blind spots. And God knows we have a ton of them. So
So,
there you go.
are there times when you're called into any of these hospitals
Mm,
that you used to what you were a resident in
yeah,
cause,
did my residency at Columbia,
yeah.
New York. Mm.
So are you still active as a doctor at Columbia?
Not now. It's a complicated question
Yeah,
because
because I don't know how
I
the
used to be a
doctor thing
professor
works,
there.
in the hospitals. I
Oh,
really
got
don't
you.
know how that
Yeah.
works.
Well, it's different. It depends on your setup. So, the hospitals are just a place where care is provided.
Yeah.
But hospitals have become a business within themselves because, in addition to being a place where people could go and get intense care, they become employers. So the traditional model was private doctors would go and they would treat their sick patients in the hospital, and then they would submit their billing and everything. But the hospital didn't own or or have any employees who are physicians. But the hospitals got smart and started consolidating, and now, because of lobbying efforts and various pieces of legislation, they're in a strong position to employ physicians, and that's exactly what they do. And that's what I did initially coming out of training. Is after I finished my residency and my fellowship, and I was a full-fledged doctor that could practice without any supervision.
Mm-hmm.
I then went to go work for a hospital, and now I'm private practice. And so when you're private practice and then you try to see patients at a hospital, because you're not employed by them, they try to box you out. You understand? And so it's hard for you as a private practitioner to work at a hospital. That's why I am active more in Port St. Lucie in the hospital there, because the doctors sued that hospital at one point because they tried to do that same employment model there.
Yeah.
The doctors said no, and they won. And because of that, they now are obligated to allow doctors who are not employed by the hospital to see their patients there, and also take call. And what call means is that you are you're basically covering the hospital for a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and if a patient so if I'm on call as a cardiologist, if a patient has a heart issue, then I get called.
Okay.
And that's how I get my patients, as opposed to the hospitals when they employ the doctors,
Mm-hmm.
they said no, we don't call the private doctor, call our doctors, and that's how a lot of hospitals operate. So it's very rare that you find a hospital like I found in Port St. Lucie that allows a private physician like me to be able to treat patients. But that's a very very new what's I'm saying. That's very inside information. That's something that I learned after I became an attending, and so the system is rigged, man. It's rigged. And your original question was, how do we fix it? And we started talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't have to look far. Look at other countries. I mean, look at European nations. Look at Asian nations. The majority of the developed world, they have the healthcare is covered for their population. And there's a lot of
Yes.
critics there's a lot of critics who say this and that about it, but you could see the mortality rates are lower.
Mm-hmm.
The cost of care is a lot lower. They're not spending nearly as much as we are for care, and the outcomes across the board are better, and disparities are not as you know uh, ridiculous as it is in the U.S. And
Yeah,
so,
they
but
treat
that's because
people. They don't.
their
They don't
system,
treat races or classes. They treat people.
yeah, they treat people, and their system is obviously there's money in everything, but their overarching agenda is healthcare as a right, not a privilege. And just like education, just like the ability to have police, right, protecting you,
Mm-hmm.
they feel the same way about healthcare, and the fact that the U.S. doesn't see it the same way is really antithetical to uh, the a developed nation, the concept of a developed nation, because part of the perks of being in a wealthy country is that basic needs are covered,
Right.
and we just don't do that. Now we have a ton of like housing and education and healthcare. We're consistently being failed all across the board.
Then that only stands to mean that we're not a wealthy nation then.
We're a wealthy nation. It's just that the wealth is concentrated in very few, and they're making decisions based on their interests, not the interests of the entire country. It's very selfish, and that's the American way. We're libertarian. We're all about self determination and pull yourself up by the bootstraps. And um, we're Caribbean and we have uh, African connections, and uh, our culture is more collective. Like I am because we are,
Right.
and it's very much a village mentality, and that's where I'm more aligned to. And I have nothing. I don't. If somebody wants to go and hustle and make money and do what they need to do, that's their business,
Right. Right.
and I don't want to take that away from someone. And if you live in America, that's baked into the cake. But where I draw the line is when people are starving and dying in the streets, and people are billionaires. That's a problem, and therefore, we need to basically look at where our priorities lie, and you can see by the way we treated this pandemic and the way we treat the way we police our people that our priorities are not for the people, and and from my standpoint, that actually is a bad thing for our country because that would further destabilize us when you
Right.
have conflicts within different class or groups of people,
Well,
and mhm.
if you don't have healthy people working in the industries, then you have a dying industry
Yeah,
because it is people that
that drive our
drive the industry.
economy, right?
Right.
You need the workers,
Right.
and we just don't value the people. We only value them to the point where they could be productive to work, but it's more of an exploitative approach. And one of the best presidents that the U.S. has ever had was FDR, Franklin D. Roosevelt, um, and a lot of folks know him because of World War II, and he did a good job, whatever.
Hmm.
I won't get too deep in that rabbit hole, but he also did the New Deal, and he broke up the monopolies. And during FDR's time, there was the Carnegies, the Rockefellers, and all of these big oil barons who were just monopolizing the market. And
Right.
he busted it up, and he said, "No, you're not going to be worth $40 billion while we're in a Great Depression. That's just not going to happen, right?" Um, and um, he broke up the monopolies, and he started programs that were specifically targeted at the working class, and that in a lot of ways made America stronger because the billionaires were still billionaires, like they were still ultra wealthy,
Hmm.
but the majority of the people had homes, and they had access to an education, they had access to social security. Before they didn't have a social security, so these are things that came about during his administration. Now, for, he didn't care about black people as much, so don't get me started on that.
Right. Right.
Because the New Deal, left black people out of that altogether for the most part. But with that, without mentioning that, my overall point really is that you cannot have a very few people sucking up all the air in a
Right.
country and destabilizing it. And so you need to have uh, a healthy, happy, and productive working class.
Okay. Now, here's what I say about the black people part to this.
Yeah,
There was there's a very successful real estate, a black real estate mogul, and he became successful using whiteface.
yeah,
So he had some white, and I have been moving away from the word Caucasian. So some
yeah,
European Americans as the face of his business, and he would work in those same businesses as a night watchman or a janitor. So he'd be mopping the floor and advising the pretend head of the company,
Oh wow.
and he'd pretend to be the chauffeur while
Wow.
briefing the pretend head and walking them through negotiating deals while driving them to their next appointment.
Yeah.
And he's the owner of the business.
Wow.
And of course he got shafted in the whole thing when it came to a head, but that was what had to be done. So, and that helped out, that changed the whole banking industry and businesses for black people, because
Yeah.
now they had access to loans to start businesses, to get vehicles, to buy a home, things like that. So now the more you had access to those things, the more they were able to be more comfortable, the more they could get an education because they're in a more comfortable setting. Now you can go, you're educated, you can go and get a job. Now you're holding a good job, and the cycle goes on, and the growth continues. You
Yeah.
take those fundamental things away, what do you have happening? Stagnation. Where anything that is stagnant is dead.
Yes.
So
Agree.
these are the things that we are not taking into consideration. These are the things that we're missing along the way. And we sit down and we get stressed because no, we want the system to get fixed. But we're not taking the time out to learn what the system is. The system is working exactly how it is designed. It just wasn't designed for us.
Exactly. And like that, what you're saying is so straightforward, but it's deep on a lot of levels, and I'll tell you why. Because you got to remember, the people who founded this country were from the, the bourgeoisie class, right?
Mm-hmm.
They were the landowners. They were the wealthy white males
Yes.
who tired of being exploited by the imperial system, or the, King, or the King George. Don't quote me on that one, but they got tired of being exploited by the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
And when they rebelled, it wasn't a rebellion of everyone, right? Because clearly the slaves didn't benefit from that, and neither did the
No.
working class. Okay.
No.
Um, when they rebelled, they rebelled for themselves, and it was a very small demographic of people. And
Right.
when they, wrote the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, they had some very good rhetoric in there. But at the end of the day, it applied to them. They were white, they were male, they were Christian,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and they were slave owners. And so they made all the rules and they built all the institutions to fit their liking. It was built for them. And now what we're dealing with, however many odd years later, is the institutions that they built. They did a good
Yes.
job, but it was for them, you know.
Yeah.
And so as the Italians came in, the Irish, the Chinese, and the Latinos, and it's a much more diverse country, a lot of different perspectives. Now we're re-examining these institutions and saying, hey, like, is this the right institution? Is this really serving our community's needs?
Mm-hmm.
And,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of times they're not. The police are not in many of our neighborhoods. The hospitals are not. So it's really time to not just use the abolition language when it comes to police. We need to look at our entire system and try to reimagine it in a way that would broadly benefit most people.
One of the things that I say when it comes to the fight is you need to be fighting, or we need to be fighting with the very same tools that we're fighting against. In other words, learn what it is that is being used against us. Because
Yes.
the things that are being used against us are the things that are indoctrinated in these systems. It is what you came through with your residency
Yes.
and the good old boys club, because everywhere you go there's a good old boys club, and the good old boys clubs come from somewhere.
Yeah.
And so the police, they have the good old boys club. Politicians, they have the good old boys club. Medicine, there's a good old boys club. I didn't know about it until you said it to me. This has been your experience, and then you recognize that you were doing these things, and it was just because of how you were taught.
Yes.
Now, though misguided, the system in which you are being taught is not flawed. It is operating just the way they created it.
Yeah.
Now, if we learn what that system is, it is only at that point that we can say, well, if you're saying that the Constitution is for all of us, then this part of this particular system, which says that only people that look this particular way can get this service, then that's contradictory.
Yeah.
Let's fix that. So now we can
Exactly.
say we're pinpointing things.
Yeah.
And when we start changing those things, because that is what you did. I don't know if you realize that is what you did with starting your business, but that's exactly what you did. You realize that. So private businesses are powerful entities in and of themselves.
Yeah.
So you have started a powerful entity. What keeps it powerful is the support that you get. So now
Yes.
the people need to be coming to you and utilizing your
Exactly.
services.
Exactly. And now, listen, you're hitting the nail right on the head because the patients give you the power. You know,
Yeah,
if I have 1,000 patients, then I could go to any hospital and start dictating terms to them. But
right.
the difference between myself and most other folks is that my agenda is aligned with my patients. And
Mm-hmm.
man, who would say once I get those 1,000 patients, I won't change? You know, you never know. People change,
Right.
and I see it time and time again. There's other black women and male uh, physicians who have successful practices, but nothing's changing, right? And it's
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of times their agenda changes, and you have to be very true to yourself. And so one of the things that we was unify, and we've alluded to this earlier, like we're divided
Yes.
and conquered,
Yes.
and we have so much power and we don't leverage it. So a lot of these patients who are going to all these other doctors, that's cool, but I know for a fact if you come to see me, I'm going to give you the time of day. You're not going to be a number. You're not going to get kicked out, and you're going to get A1 high quality care, the same care that I give to my other patients. You know, and I have quite a few patients who are well off or well known,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't get any better care than my patient that doesn't have insurance. You know, and that's just how I am. I just cannot uh, not treat somebody. You know, if you don't have insurance, I'm still going to see you.
But isn't that a part of what you declare an oath to? Taking
Yeah,
care of people?
we're very good on rhetoric in this country. Have you noticed that?
Well,
You know,
yeah,
the,
I kind
the
of have.
Declaration, the oath, yeah, the Hippocratic oath says one thing, but the institutions and the practice of medicine is a entirely different reality. And we saw that with George Floyd, right? And
Definitely.
yeah, and
But
when the Declaration of Independence was written, they said all men are created equal while having slaves. Like the cognitive dissonance is deafening. And
yes,
so yeah, we talk a good talk, but the reality is very different. And from my standpoint, I decided a long time ago that instead of us asking for things to change, we need to we needed to demand it and change it ourselves.
we
And
have to
so
know what those things are.
yeah,
So
but one of it's building our own institutions that have an explicit agenda that is aligned with our needs and our necessities. And I think we're starting to waking up and say, hey, like, are these institutions serving us?
Right.
And that's the first step. And once you get past that step, then the question is, like, how do you change that? And a lot of folks, they don't get to the point of we need to reimagine these systems. A lot of folks are still reform minded, and reforms. Look at where we're at. I mean, last time we got crazy, we ended up with body cameras. That
Hmm.
didn't change anything. You just got a better vantage point of the brutality. So
Right, because
um,
then there were certain things that protected these very same officers.
yeah,
The
and that's
unions, the powerful unions, and the
if that's
lawyers
what
that
they
were
mean.
and
Yes,
we don't pay attention to those things, and we don't question those things, and we don't learn what it is that how the literature is goes with their protection, so that we can say, all right,
exactly.
no, 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 no. If all men are created equal, and
Hmm.
you're applying this protection when it only happens to this sect of people, then you're not
Yeah,
treating all men as equal. Let's fix that.
exactly.
Let's train our individuals differently. Let's relearn what humanity is.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, if people recognize that we are the ones with the power, then that will start to change things, because then you realize, you know what, you don't have to go and burn down a building to be heard. You
Yes, exactly.
every 4 years or every 2 years in some situations, depending on what the office is, these individuals come to you so that you can put them in that position. When I say you, I mean us, the voting public.
Yeah, yeah.
That is what
That's
the
true.
campaigning is all about. Can you
That's
please put me in this position, because when you put me in this position, I am here for you to do this.
Yeah. Well, yes and no. And so one of the things that I like to point out and
Mm,
is that a lot of people, a lot of folks say, our ancestors, died for our right to vote,
yeah.
and that's just not true. They didn't die for our right to vote. They died for our freedom,
Mm-hmm.
right? And voting was one tool for that. If we could get freedom without voting, they wouldn't have voted. They would have just went straight for the freedom. Like, but again, it was a tool that was presented to them that they utilized.
Right.
But the point I'm making is that it's more than just voting. It's really trying to get to an outcome, right? Like, at the end of the day, we want to
Yes.
have our institutions serve our needs. We want a better quality of
Yes.
life. We want to live longer. We want to be happy. We want to get educated. We want to do all those things. And simply telling people to vote is overly simplistic and
Oh,
not really getting at the entire picture. I know that's not what you were saying.
okay. Okay. Good.
Yeah, I know that's not what you were saying at
Yeah.
all. But I just wanted to get at that point, because the people that say don't vote, they don't get it at all. Like, why would you say that? That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Like, yeah,
Right.
you're just conceding your power. But then there's folks who say go and like go vote. Like, that's the only thing you to do, because you have to understand that uh, I'm not a Democrat or Republican, and I think uh, the Democrats are trash, and I think the Republicans are hot flaming trash, and these are
Mm.
institutions that don't serve our needs. And like for instance, look at the election in Kentucky. Um, Schumer, who's the head of the U.S. Senate, decided to support this moderate woman who's a war veteran, who
Mm-hmm.
sounds like a robot, to beat Mitch McConnell, to challenge him in his Senate race.
Right.
Uh,
Haven't been paying attention to it. I've been
yeah,
staying away
but
from.
but the reason why the Senate race has become a big deal is not because this woman raised about $40 million, and she's a money making machine, but because she was so tone deaf on Black Lives Matter. And there's a black man who I would love to see what the results are, because the primary was today, who came out of nowhere, but he was always there, and he basically was reiterating a lot of the things that I was saying,
Mm-hmm.
like very fundamental institutional changes that no one was cared about. But it took the murder of Breonna Taylor in Kentucky for him to get a
Mm,
foothold.
yeah.
And he's become the insurgent candidate all of a sudden because people are understanding that he's actually addressing their needs.
Right.
And during the debate, they asked this woman about the protest. They're like, have you been out there? Have you been participated at all? And she basically said no, it wasn't important enough to her, and we have to start calling BS because again, the Democratic Party, uh, they depend and they need our votes, especially with Black women, but they don't serve our needs. You have to
Right.
you can't keep asking us to vote, and then when we vote, things don't change. Don't blame us for your incompetence, and that's a problem with the two party system, and that's a problem with um, our government is that it's very much controlled. And so by the time you get to vote, and like for someone like me who's an independent, I got to choose between Trump and Biden. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
come on, like this is really what. And because I can't vote in the Florida primary because it's a closed primary, and so like we have to be we have to leverage our power, and
Yes.
we have to do it by any means necessary. And eventually, yes, we'll get the candidate that we want, but we got to stop
The
asking.
accountability. The
Yeah, but yeah,
accountability.
we have to leverage our vote. Like we don't. It's either the Democrats or nothing, right? And we need to start leveraging our vote and demanding that they put forward candidates that serve our needs.
You
Got it.
you have modeled that in the medical field, and I can't stress that enough in starting your business to meet the needs of the people as best as you can.
Yes.
And you have gone out in the streets to meet people where they are. You try to service them in your offices.
Yes.
um I don't know if you know any grant writers. I'm going to say
Yeah.
that any grant writers tuning into the show need to give you a call.
Hey, holla at your boy because there's grants that I know about right now, and I just don't even have the bandwidth to apply. But it's important. You just need to do it. But there's only so much one person can do.
I know
But
there are some
definitely,
grant writers that know people that know people, you
yeah,
know.
definitely.
So
Hey, holla at me. Holla at me. My website is cvcmedicine.com. The name of the business is Comprehensive Vascular Care. And you can email me anytime at info at cvcmedicine.com. Again, info at cvcmedicine.com. And the CVC stands for Comprehensive Vascular Care. So yeah, definitely. I like I said, I'm help me. Okay, so I'm not too proud to ask for help. I mean that the reason why I am a here today is because people have bent over backwards to look out for me. And
mhm.
so I'm very much a product of the village, and I don't need to do this on my own. There's a lot of folks that look like me that have the very same agenda that I do, that can help me out, and obviously I can help them out as well. So yeah, if there's any grant writers out there, holla at your boy.
Yeah. I am. You see, if you're looking at me, you'll see me looking down. I'm actually sending a message to a grant writer right now that I know.
My man.
I tell you no lie. Um, I'm sending her a message right now. She's been a guest on the show a few times. Someone I know personally. Um, and I'm reaching out to her, and hopefully I can get you two connected, and you can
Yeah.
go from there. She has run for um county commissioner in Palm Beach.
Hmm.
Last year she was running for that position, and I believe she's gonna run again next year.
Very nice. But
Um,
that sounds like somebody I should know in general.
yeah, her name is Sylvia Sharps,
Okay.
and just a beautiful soul. Not to say
Yeah.
that
That's
she's not
awesome.
good to look at, but she's just a beautiful soul.
Got you. Now I understand what you meant.
But yeah, I'm gonna try to connect you two, and we'll see what can happen from there. I don't know what will happen, but we'll see whatever can happen from there.
I'm all for it. I have a $50,000 grant from the Association of Black Cardiologists that I need to apply for. So help me out.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'll get it if I just applied. So
Well, first things first.
yeah,
I'll connect you too. You know, so
okay.
that's the first step.
I
And you
appreciate
see,
that.
this is a part of us building each other. You know,
Yes,
we
exactly.
call on those that we know have the skill set or the tools that we need for the time that we need it. And there's nothing wrong with networking and helping out each other out. I am not going to lose anything by bringing you on my show and saying go to Dr. Bernard Ashby's site
Hmm.
and go ahead and see how you can help.
Yeah,
You know, I
yeah.
have no problem doing that.
I
And you
appreciate
have
that.
put your information out there. It is
Mhm.
recorded. It will be in the archives and your social media. How can people connect
Yeah.
with you?
Oh yeah. Well, again, holla at your boy at b.ashbymd, and that's on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok, which I don't use. Still trying to figure that
I was
out.
about to
But
say.
yeah, yeah, I'm trying to keep up, man. But yeah, listen, I can only do so much.
Hey,
But yeah,
before you
go
go
ahead.
though, I had a question that I should have asked you from the beginning
Mhm.
because you have a whole set of a whole another alphabet behind your name.
Yeah.
I- Please quickly explain.
Okay. Well, let me explain. So the MD is my doctorate,
Yeah,
medical degree.
right.
Um, I also have a degree in policy. I have a master's in public policy. I did that at Princeton, and I have I
The
essentially about my family.
RPVL.
Yeah, RPVI.
Oh, sorry,
So
yeah, RPVI.
yeah, I'm board certified. Let me see, one, two, three, four. Yeah, I have four board certifications. So I RPVI is I'm a registered physician in vascular interpretation. So
Okay.
I'm certified to be able to interpret vascular studies.
Mm-hmm.
I'm board certified in vascular medicine. Uh, did that at Hopkins, and I'm board certified in cardiology. I did that at George Washington, and I'm board certified in internal medicine. I did that at Columbia, and I'm board certified in nuclear cardiology as well, and I did that at George Washington. So um, maybe that's five. I don't remember, but anyways, uh, I'm I'm certified, and that's kind of like why I feel like I'm able to you know do what I'm doing and talk the way I talk. Obviously, you still have to watch your back, but um, I feel like I've earned the right to be able to do what I'm doing, and
So when
you
did
can't
you
take my
start?
education away.
When did you start getting all of these certifications? When you were two? What?
Oh
Come
man.
on.
Well, I went straight. I went straight from
Oh, straight
undergrad
out
all the
of
way through.
elementary school? What?
No, 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 no. I started at Florida State, and interesting story there. I mean, when I went to FSU, I was actually not much of a student. Uh, in high school, I got kicked out, not because I was a bad student, just because I was just kind of aloof,
Mm.
and um, that was a jolt I needed to start being more focused. And so, luckily, I was able to get into college due to my SAT scores. And once I got to FSU, I struggled. I struggled a lot. It was very difficult for me to keep up in classes. But I don't know if you picked up on a theme is that, and I get it from my dad, is that like don't let your pride get in the way. Um, My dad, he taught me a lot of things, and he said, you figure it out. And sometimes it looks ugly, but figure it out. So I went to the tutoring sessions. I went to the after class sessions. I did everything that was there to help me, and I used it, and it worked. And I eventually caught up, and then I excelled and I blossomed. But I was never too prideful to accept any help from anybody. You understand? So, um, you know, uh, when you look at my background, it looks very nice and fancy, but it looked very different doing it. I'll tell you that much. It didn't look as pretty.
But I that's your story, and we're gonna need another show for that one. Is that's that inspirational story that comes on Lifetime or something.
Yeah,
That's what that I get from that little snippet that you just put out a while ago. You know, but that is what a lot of our children need. That the ones that are failing and are being stigmatized. That's what they need. A story like yours.
yeah, definitely. And I love to tell my story, and that's another shout out. If you want me to come speak at your school, your church, I tell me, it's give me enough time, and I'm there. But one of the things that I say is that I enjoy doing that, giving these talks,
Hmm.
especially at schools. But
Yeah.
I don't find them very effective, um, because I feel like I'm giving these young people false hope. Because you can't tell somebody, you can't give somebody a pep talk and then send them to war with no armor.
Mm.
And so, what I want to focus on is equipping these young men and women for success. They need these, like an education system that supports them. They need resources.
Yeah.
They need support. And so, a speech saying, "Look at me and look at what I did," is not going to do that.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah.
and
You're
and
right.
yes, I did that, but I'm an anomaly. But I had a tremendous amount of support from so many people that changed my trajectory. And so, yes, I don't mind being an inspiration, but I want to be uh, more of a support system and a provider of resources to equip these young men and women so that when they face the world, that they can put up a good fight.
Is that a part of what you plan to do, or an arm
Um,
or division of your office, your practice?
already doing it, and we're
See.
applying for grants to augment our education. But I already have med students, residents, and even high school students who shadow me and work with me. And uh, it's more than just the education. It's the longitudinal relationships that I form, and the fact that they could ask me anything, and that I would do anything for them. And like, we need folks like me and you, like, we need to be very much present in our communities and engage, and not just come and fly in and do a little speech and leave. You
Yeah.
got to be there.
Give your
Yeah,
website one
so,
more time.
cvcmedicine.com.
Yeah, that's how it
And
works.
yes, and my phone number is 305-432-4218. If you want to book an appointment, I do telemedicine as well. And again, you could hit me up on social media if you have any general questions, or if you want to keep up to date and learn about the coronavirus or anything else. Um, Follow me on Instagram, DSBMD. I'm all about supporting any claim that I make. And one of the things that I say about 2020 is that it's been the fake news Olympics.
Mm.
And so there's been a ton of misinformation out there,
Yeah.
that's been going around, and no one's really vetting it. And a lot of these conspiracy theories are playing up on our intrinsic biases. And unfortunately, a lot of folks are believing things that are, well, one, incorrect, but two, can be harmful.
Yeah.
And so, you have folks that just refuse to wear a mask, for example, and yeah, that's potentially harmful. But yeah, but that's that. So it's Fake News Olympics. So if you want to get accurate, vetted information, yeah, just follow me on social media. And I'm also, pretty vocal about, injustices and the BS. So Lil Henry call that out, call that stuff out all the time, and both sides too,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of folks who are quote unquote allies that are putting out misinformation, and I got to shut it down. I'm like, yeah, I know where you're coming from, but what you're saying is actually incorrect. And so I spent a lot of time just trying to make sure folks, when they get perpetuate information, that is accurate and that they vet it. And you'll be surprised how many folks don't even do a quick Google search before they share something. They'll hear it, and it'll align with their intrinsic biases, and it'll confirm what they already thought was true, and then they'll send it along.
Right.
But we have to vet information, because just like viruses, it doesn't spread until a host passes that on, and so we have to break that chain by vetting information.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bernard Ashby. That name needs to be a household name.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you, Kevin.
Not a problem, bro. We'll be in touch.
We'll be in touch. Bless. Bye.
All right, take care. This right here, Mr. Ed Robinson.
Good morning, evening, friends.
It's called Love in Need of Love.
I have serious news to pass on to everybody. What I'm about to say could mean the world's disaster, could change your joy and laughter to tears and pain.
10 minutes to the end of the night. And to the end of the night shift. This is our musical therapy.
And it will if we let it destroy everybody. We all must take precautionary measures. If peace and love you treasure, then hear me when I say.
Yeah, y'all could have told me that I didn't turn up the music, you know.
In need of love today. Don't delay. Send yours in right away. Don't you know that haze going round, and it's breaking hearts. Oh, we all gotta stop it. Stop it, please, before it's gone too far. Oh, yeah. Love's in need of love.
He goes by the name Ed Robinson.
Don't keep
The track is called Love's in Need of Love.
it right away. Oh, yeah. Can you believe hate's going round? And
And that's one of the things that we need to be cognizant of right now. lot of loves out there in need of love. This one here goes out to Dr. Ashby, Dr. Bernard Ashby, and others like him, those serving in our medical fields and all the first responders. Shout out to you, our capeless heroes. Just know that we appreciate, love you, all the capeless heroes. Inviting you to join me back here tomorrow, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, kevinstew.com, Real Talk Wednesday, also known as Marlon's favorite night shift show. This is how we close out the night shift week. Tomorrow we're going to be looking at where Negroes came from, and it's coming on the heels of when did Caucasians start? This will be how we close out tonight. This is Hezron.
Lord, watch over me with thy rod and staff.
It's called Resilience.
As I travel these streets, day out, day in. Protect those dearest to me with a ready sword. Let no harm come to them from the enemies. Many said there's no God, so they infiltrate and manipulate the simple and innocent. Polluting the minds, their agenda. Imposing laws of their sinful cause they want us to accept. I stand resilient. I know. Every knee shall bow and every tongue confess. I stand resilient. As you said, one of my words goes astray, but an action misses. Sometimes I feel alone. On this path I feel alone. now. Rule and reign.
Jah rules and reigns.
Yeah.
Jah rules and reigns.
Some say if you make it in a life, you have to know if you play ball. Not even like the terminology. Not like how we sound at all. Them say you can't reach nowhere if them no sign it off. Me I feel laugh to myself like a damn name God. Well, I'm a lion in this jungle, still I remain humble. The road may be rocky at times, but my faith, Lord, it never stumble. You say the liquor what the righteous have, better than the riches of the wicked. Not one of your seed shall sit by the sidewalk and beg.
I stand resilience. I know.
Cause I know
Every
knee shall bow and every
tongue confess.
I'm resilience. Cause it's there.
This is how I leave you. Good morning, good afternoon, good day to you, wherever you are in the world. From right here in South Florida, I bid you good night. Until tomorrow,
On the back.
we'll do it all over again. Real Talk Wednesday, 10 p.m. Eastern. Right here, kevinstew.com and affiliates.
But you know what I mean. I'm resilience. Cause I know I'm not a perfect man, Lord. I've got my own demons, yeah. But you'll never see me sitting in the council of the ungodly. Cause I know in you things are possible. No weapon can come against me. With you, victory's guaranteed.
I stand resilience. I know.
Cause I know.
Greetings and salutations, one and all. You're invited to tune in to the night shift with DJ Kevin Stew. It airs on Mondays with Community and Finance, Tuesdays with Healthy Love, and Wednesdays with Real Talk from 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern Time. Come spend some time interacting in the stew pot where we keep things bubbling and wind down in musical therapy. The night shift with DJ Kevin Stew is on kevinstew.com, where you're encouraged to have acceptance through enlightenment.